Rhythmic gymnastics is a sport that's both underrated and misunderstood. Why is becoming a top athlete so difficult, and why does representing Russia make things so much easier compared to other countries? Age limits. Being young isn't just a benefit when it comes to rhythmic gymnastics, it's a requirement. Regarding training, it's the earlier the better. Renowned athletes and twin sisters Arina and Dina Averina got started when they were just 4 years old, and that's a good thing since at age 21, they're about ready to retire. They started competing at the age of 13, but were forbidden from taking part in major international competitions and the Olympics. Regulations specify that rhythmic gymnasts can only do so after the 1st of January of their 16th year. Because the sport is so physically demanding, most athletes peak in their late teens or early 20s. Although Arina and Dina are excited about going to the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, they're not sure if their career will extend beyond that point. Despite their young age and huge potential, they see themselves as retired within the next 5 years. Psychological training. Being a rhythmic gymnast requires more than just a strong body, you also need a powerful mind. These athletes need to be able to function under intense pressure, and they need to do so fast, since each performance has to be under a minute and a half long. According to Linoy Ashram, when she makes a mistake, she knows she can't give in to panic. Being able to recover well enough to get through your routine is an essential skill for all rhythmic gymnasts. This sport has a huge psychological component, and giving in to anxiety or negative emotions can cost athletes their shot at the Olympic Games. Arina and Dina work with a psychologist who helps them analyze their mistakes and figure out what went wrong, why it happened, and how to cope with it. Physical training. These stars can't drop the ball mentally or physically. They need to be in top shape at all times in order to pull off their amazing moves. Margarita Mamun won the gold medal in the 2016 Summer Olympics, and before she retired, she was training for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. And that was just during the off-season. When it came time to compete, Margarita had to be all in every day. Although she admits she misses competition and the public support it brought her, Margarita says she doesn't miss her over-the-top training schedule. To make things even more difficult, most of these sessions took place far from home, which meant she missed out on spending time with her family. Judge qualifications. Even rhythmic gymnast judges have a lot of rules they're supposed to follow, not that they always do. Becoming an official Olympic judge takes a lot of studying and being able to pass strict exams, but there was a serious problem when prospective officials tried to qualify to take part in the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. 60 exam takers were caught cheating at their exams, and apparently they weren't even subtle about it. They were straight up copying off each other's papers, and the Internal Gymnastics Federation had to spend months investigating the incident. One Olympic official was expelled, and 6 were suspended as a result of their research into this debacle. Talk about unsportsmanlike conduct, and the games hadn't even started yet.
My dream's been shattered now, but you know what? I have a big career ahead of me.
Funding. There are a ton of expenses associated with this sport, and becoming a professional athlete is not cheap. All of those hours training with coaches and consulting with psychologists add up, not to mention the cost of travel and costumes. Most rhythmic gymnasts and their families end up paying for these things themselves, and they're not easy to afford. Hannah Martin was the youngest qualifying member of the England team at the 2018 Commonwealth Games before she dropped out of the sport. Not because she wasn't talented or fell out of love with it, but because she just couldn't afford it. Jade Faulkner says she and her family were constantly stressed about their finances due to rhythmic gymnastics, and at times they got desperate. She and her teammates from Great Britain threw fundraising events and even took out newspaper ads begging for financial assistance for their chosen sport. She works as a rhythmic gymnastics coach now, but believes her own career could have gone even further if she wasn't constantly struggling to afford participating. Russia always wins. It's not technically a rule that Russia always wins, but it does seem to be the case the vast majority of the time. Russia has won every available Olympic gold medal in the sport since the Sydney Olympics in 2000. While many athletes from all over the world have to pinch pennies to afford their training, that isn't the case in Russia. Evita Griskenas is an American gymnast who has trained there, and she says the Russian Olympic gymnasts are treated like celebrities. In addition to financial support, they also receive tons of public attention and adoration, which is a huge morale boost. But there are some enthusiasts who believe Linoy Ashram might give Russian athletes a serious challenge at the 2020 Olympics. Maybe it's time this rule changed. Coaching. When rhythmic gymnasts are competing, their coaches aren't allowed to directly assist. The regulations clearly state that during performances, coaches can't communicate with their gymnasts or the judges. Defying this will earn a half-point penalty, and nobody wants that. But when the performance is over, that's a whole different story. Director Marta Pruss went 100 days documenting Margarita Mamun's lead up to the Rio Olympics and got some interesting insight on her coach's methods. One moment they would praise Margarita's skill, and the next they would start screaming profanities at her. Amina Vasilovna Zarapova yelled at Margarita, "You are not a human being, you are an athlete." No wonder Margarita says she doesn't miss the time she spent training. Apparently this type of intensity isn't uncommon in the industry, and coaches are willing to do whatever they think will inspire their gymnasts to work harder. Women only. In the world of sports, rhythmic gymnastics is relatively new. It started out in the Soviet Union during the 1940s and wasn't introduced into the Olympics until 1984. And unlike many similar competitions, only women can compete. Yes, being a woman is a prerequisite for the sport, at least if you plan on competing in the Olympic Games. However, this is another rule that could change at some point. In 2003, Japan hosted the Men's RG World Championship, and there are many men around the world who train and perform this sport, although they can't do so on a professional level. Male rhythmic gymnasts tend to choreograph performances more heavily based on acrobatics and speed compared to their female counterparts. Appeal process. Winning a gold medal should be a fairly straightforward process, but just try telling that to Iza Amzan. She was handed a gold medal at the SEA Games after earning the same amount of points as Koi Si-yeon, but then event organizers withdrew her prize and gave her silver instead. Luckily for Iza, the Olympic Council of Malaysia pointed out a rule that requires changes in winning to go through an appeal process, and that process has to be completed before the prize-giving ceremony. This means Iza was finally able to keep the gold medal she had been awarded after the event. Dress code. Traditional gymnasts tend to wear understated costumes, but rhythmic gymnasts have an opportunity to get a bit more creative. Early competitors wore standard suits, and in the 1980s they started opting for more brightly colored styles. As time went on, athletes attempted to attract interest in their sport by choosing colorful leotards adorned with interesting details and eye-catching sequins. Although these costumes can be downright stunning, there are some rules that must be followed. Understandably, they can't be made entirely of transparent material, and necklines can't fall below the halfway point on the sternum. These skin-tight fabrics are actually a requirement since they help judges determine if the athlete is moving her body correctly. They are allowed to wear short skirts, but nothing that can obscure their legs or get in the way while performing. Choose an apparatus. In rhythmic gymnastics, there are 5 types of apparatuses to choose from, and the Fédération Internationale de Gymnastique only sanctions 4 of them. Gymnasts can only use one at a time without being penalized, and each athlete tends to have their own personal favorite. There's the rope, but the FIG nullified its use in senior individual rhythmic gymnastics competitions in 2011. There's also the hoop, ball, clubs, and ribbon. Even though Arina and Dina are twins, they have their own preferences when it comes to their apparatuses. Arina enjoys using the ball and clubs, while Dina opts for the hoop and ribbon. Keep moving. Each apparatus has its own challenges and its own set of rules that must be followed. Ribbons have a maximum length of 3 feet and require a high degree of coordination. Unlike other items used in this sport, ribbons have to be kept moving at all times. Failure to twirl results in a loss of points. Clubs must weigh at least 150 grams each, although ones used for children's divisions are lighter. Balls must be made of either rubber or a synthetic material with a similar elasticity. Hoops must be made of either plastic or wood as long as it retains its shape, and ropes should be constructed of either hemp or a similarly light and supple material. Musical choice. Picking out the music for a routine might seem simple, but it's actually a huge part of the performance. Choosing the wrong tune can not only throw off the routine, but it can result in points being lost. Music can't involve non-instrumental or non-vocal components like sirens or car engines, although a sound signal can prompt the beginning of a song. The routine must pair well with the musical selection for an athlete to have a chance for scoring full points. Not only that, but the timing has to be absolutely perfect. Ending the routine a moment before or after the music stops means losing points. Support each other. With so many restrictions placed on rhythmic gymnasts, you might think rivalries would be extremely commonplace, but most of these athletes agree that their greatest competition is themselves. When director Marta Pruss filmed Margarita Mamun, she expected to see negativity activity between her and fellow gymnast Yana Kutriastova. But she believes that since the sport requires so much unwavering dedication and long hours spent training, many people end up feeling isolated. This loneliness leads to gymnasts taking friendships where they can find them, even among their competitors. Arina and Dina are frequently asked if they feel competitive with one another, but they say this isn't the case. These sisters claim that they're so caught up in their own routines, they can't possibly worry about whether or not their twin is outperforming them. Therapeutic use exemption. A ban on performance-enhancing substances shouldn't be complicated, but sometimes it can be. Rhythmic gymnast Laura Zhang represented the United States in the 2016 Olympics, but later caught a 6-month ban because of a serious violation. She tested positive for a substance called acetazolamide, which she had taken in the form of an altitude sickness medication. Laura had been given the medicine by her parents and claimed she was under the impression that she was taking a standard ibuprofen. Because of this, she didn't apply for a therapeutic use exemption beforehand, which would have been required in this case. Even though Laura claimed it was a misunderstanding, she ended up getting sidelined for half a year. What do you think about rhythmic gymnastics? Does knowing about the rules make you think this sport should be more respected? Take a moment to share your opinions with us in the comment section and then click on the subscribe button for more videos from us here at The Taco. We'll see you next time.